Gentlemen, please kindly sit since we will start the event in a few minutes. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon to the Honorable Rector of the Universitas Islam Internasional Indonesia, Professor Dr. Komarudin Hidayat, President Commissioner of Bank Syariah Indonesia, Profesor Mulyaman Dharma Syahadat, PhD, Dean of the Faculty of Economic and Business, Universitas Islam Internasional Indonesia, Profesor Dian Masita, PhD, Head of Master of Finance in Sustainable Finance Study Program, Dr. Rizky Wisnantoro. Distinguished attendees, ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted to welcome you to the Theater Hall at Faculty A Building of Universitas Islam Internasional Indonesia in the occasion of public lecture titled Principle of Sustainable Finance and Global Updates on Monday, October 16, 2023. I am Adina Umaira, and on behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to extend our highest appreciation for attendance and participation. Let's open this event with Basmalah. Bismillah. Ladies and gentlemen, to start this event, please all rise as we sing the national anthem of Indonesia Raya, followed by the university hymn. Please be seated. Now, please join me in welcoming the Rector of Triple IU, Professor Dr. Komarudin Hidayat, to deliver the opening address. Professor, the stage is yours.
Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable Speaker, my friend Prof. Mulaiman Haddad, welcome to our campus. Honorable Dean, Prof. Dian, lecturers, and our beloved student. We are very happy today. We have very outstanding speaker, that is Professor Mulaiman Haddad. When we look back on the situation of pandemic, we remember and we were feeling that how scary the time it was. And the excess of this pandemic is still going on until now. We are living, even though after pandemic, we are living in post-pandemic, but we still have many problems. Some people say we are living in VUCA era, that is volatility, civilization living on this planet. I am personally feeling the situation that's it's getting worse. It's getting warmer and hotter in this complex. Before, when the first time, at least 1 year ago, it's okay, the climate, the weather, but no, I feel so hot outside the building. It is the impact of climate change, and it is the first time in Indonesia we open the Department of Climate Change. It is in this university. Why? Because we are very aware of the situation. So we face the heating tension of geopolitics, economic turmoil, and with the predicament of sustainable. Yeah, whenever we read newspaper and we are watching television, only few news that it's give us, well, like consolation, but the rest almost feel and give rather pessimistic way. But again, today I do hope from the lecture give us a sense of optimistic way and looking the future of our economic development. Uh, we need the optimistic view, but of course must be rational and empirical, not illusion, not wishful thinking. Even though we are in the situation of, well, there are so many predicaments in the socio-economic development, but I'm sure that Indonesia is still much better than other countries. In a nutshell, the world is currently in a great transition mode, environmentally and socio-economically. The main question here is how to finance or fund this transition. That the big question that we are going to listen this evening, this afternoon. The industry, therefore, will greatly shift as the quest of sustainable business emerge. Business are facing a great challenge to be well governed, as well as more responsible and more impactful. Investors are also keen for impactful investment objects. Well, in short, I only need short time. Uh, this is why we opened the program Mr. Finance, led by our Dean, Professor Diana Masita, and also Rizky Wisnuntoro, head of the program. Not only the student will learn the dynamic theoretical piece of the knowledge, but also exemplary system at large. It is new knowledge in Indonesia, and so this lecture also will be marking the intellectual involvement of him, that he would be also a member of lecturer in this university. Give applause for him. Lastly, for students, I wish you a good luck. The future will, the future world will be at your hand. We as a wedding generation, so the future will be at your hand.
We have gathered here to explore the interest and important topic of physical of sustainable finance and global updates. Please note the conference landscape. Sustainable finance provides the roadmap to ensure investment Lots of them. 2023. And another song.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good afternoon to all of you, Honorable Rector and Dean, uh, professors, the students, and ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by saying thank you very much indeed. It is an honor. It is an honor for me to be here, and then thank you for the invitation. The topic that I would like to discuss this afternoon is something, well, you can say it's something macro. Yeah. Well, actually, when we talk about the sustainable finance or climate finance or other finance related to the sustainability, I think in my view, we have to bring this into higher perspective. So we do understand later on what's the linkage between what have been happening now, or Professor Komar, our rector, just mentioned the climate change, the the weather is getting warmer and warmer and things like that, and the extremism as far as the weather concerned. So then after that we bring to the what finance can do, because sometimes it's not easy to link between finance and global warming. This afternoon, my objective is just one side and global warming in the other side. And just in the middle, we call it sustainable finance. And and in other words, some people also have called as a climate finance. Well, you can both. You can do both. Uh, well, what we expect from COP28 summit in Dubai next month, actually. I will talk about the COP in the great detail later on. Uh, please be patient. What COP is and what COP links to the finance and what COP links to the initiative or global initiative related to the climate finance or climate change. Oh, tadi keluar. Mau berubah halaman dulu. Oh, ini. Oh, oke, lewat. Iya, kan. The world is getting warmer. Just exactly our rector mentioned earlier about everything is getting warmer today. And look what you conclude from this picture, This is annual mean land and ocean temperature above and below average between 1850 to 2020. So for the last 20 years, starting from, let's say, starting from this point to this point, the world is getting warmer. But before that, this point, annually mean land below the average one. So this been happening now. And this trajectory will become uncontrollable, maybe uncontrollable if we do nothing. And 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 everyone in the world, including the political leaders, government leaders, very much concerned in this number, and then trying to collaborate and make coordination, making mobilizing resources, to avoid this going to this direction. But we would like to have this at least they going flat or even try to make it at the same level. Otherwise, there will be kind of catastrophic. What we can say about the situation, the world is warming because of the fossil emission. Fossil emission, I mean fossil fuels and the like in transportation, in other sector of the economy. Extreme weather event linked to climate change, including heat wave, flood, and forest fires, been happening quite frequently, not only here, perhaps in Indonesia, but also in other part of the globe. In Pakistan, just very recently, there huge flood. In other part of the Asia, in Africa, extremism as far as the weather concern been happening frequently. This indicating that our past decade is the warmest on the record. As I said, governments, including Indonesian government, Indonesia is one of the promoter of these initiatives as a member of G20. So including the Indonesian government agree that we have to collaborate and collective action is needed. And in this point, I think we then link to the what we call it the COP. We call it the Conference of Parties since 1995. I will describe a little bit about COP a little bit later on. So actually, the initiative to collaborate among the leaders already started in 1995. You can imagine in 1995. But along the way, of course, there are ups and downs, a lot of commitments, but then very slow adaptation and progression, a lot of challenges and dynamics becoming bigger and bigger because of different size of the magnitude of the catastrophic locally and regionally. We are happy actually because more than 200 countries are being asked for their plan to cut emission by 2030 to keep global warming well below 2 degrees Celsius and aim for 1.5 Celsius to avoid catastrophe mentioned in Paris Agreement. So the objective is basically we have to avoid more than 2 degrees Celsius of the increase. At least we can maintain at 1.5 degrees additional uh, the warming up of our Earth. Otherwise, if you reach more than this number, then catastrophic very much will become a frequent event that we will face not only our period or our time, but also perhaps our son, grandson time later on. catastrophe, will be full of catastrophe. And even there is some ambitious, I should say, ambitious target that by 2050 there will be net zero in our world. This is a lot of people very skeptical about this target because this target is not only reflecting a commitment but also reflecting the collaboration, the leadership. Only good leader will be able to mobilize global commitment to reach this number. So this seems to me very important, but a little bit ambitious target. 2050 should be zero emission. What does it mean? Perhaps there is no more fossil fuels used in our industry or in our car or in our household. Everything should be electrified and things like that. Is it possible? Well, is it possible? But it's not easy. There should be something to manage in between. We call it managing transition. So the topic of energy transition from fossil-based energy to the non-fossil-based energy is really something very important and should be one of our priority. Let's talk a little bit about COP. We call it Conference of the Parties little bit. Actually, the initiative how to mobilize all resources to control the additional numbers of the warming up of the global weather or global warming is basically already started in 1992. This is 1992, when the UN established what they call it the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, or UNFCCC. This is the very important year as far as the global warming concerned. After that, every single year we have a summit meeting. All the leaders of the government met in different part of the world, and we start counting from COP1, COP2, COP3, and so on until next month in Dubai will be held COP28. So the topic is very much on what we can expect from next month COP28 under a lot of circumstances related to the global impact of the climate change and global warming. I would like to select several what I call it important COPs. Why? Because it is a kind of COPs that produce very significant declaration or commitment. Let's say start with the first COP held in Berlin. They come up with Berlin Mandate, outline legally binding emission reduction target. So in the first meeting in 1995, we are all agreed that we have to have what we call it reduction target of emission, whether the emission coming from the fossil fuel or emission coming from other source. So, but the point is basically from 1995, we agreed to have a target. And then, well, of course, because every year we met, the next year we evaluate whether we still on the track with the target or there is some lagging or lacking and so on and so forth. So it's good to review every single year the development of the commitment. But 1995 is very important because it is the first COP. 1997 COP number 3 or COP3, we call it the Kyoto Protocol. This is very important and this is very popular COP. Perhaps most of you heard about the Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto Protocol is already stated about binding emission reduction for developed countries and introduce market-based mechanism. So what important from the Kyoto Protocol is basically commitment from developed countries. Committed very much. They have a target and they committed to reach the target to reduce emission and introduce what they call it market-based mechanism. Well, actually, until now, we don't have yet a single market mechanism which fully workable. Yeah. I think this is different story. I will perhaps touch a little bit detail about what has been going on up to now. But basically, intention to use market-based mechanism is already stated in 1995 in the Kyoto Protocol. COP23, COP21. So we jump a little bit because we will have. This is also very popular, the Paris Agreement. I think most of you also heard about this one. The Paris Agreement as landmark for sustainability or sustainable policy or sustainable consideration of every single policy that issued by government. So this is why they call it the Paris Agreement. It was 2015. What then the important result from the Paris Agreement? I would like to highlight some here. To limit global warming well below 2 degrees. So the target of 2 degrees already mentioned in Paris Agreement in 2015. Above pre-industrial level. You can imagine, pre-industrial level. So years back, and then, well, we have data, good data and statistic. And then after that, we base here, and then we collect that, and then the conference agreed that above 2 degrees Celsius will be catastrophic. But then, okay, 2 degrees perhaps too progressive, but then they agree that 1.5 is perhaps intermediate target. So, this one, if we can achieve 2.5, why we have to wait until 2 degrees, something like that. That's why then we put 1.5 degrees Celsius as a global target. The scientists, the political leaders believe that more than this number will be catastrophic, something like that. Every country then committed to have their own individual contribution. The term is nationally determined contribution was introduced. So every single country should submit the target and collected by UN, and then this target committed, and then after that will be supervised, will be reviewed, whether we are on the right track or whether we are lacking and things like that. So this is very important term, NDC. They call it National Determined Contribution. So when you agreed at the global level and then you derive this number into single individual country target. So Indonesia or every single country in the world should have their own, what they call it, NDC. NDC for Indonesia, I know I will touch a little bit later on how ambitious Indonesia as far as the individual country, as an individual country, to reduce emission. Yeah, we have our own NDC. COP25 in Spain address issue related to finance loss and damage, and ambition in climate finance, more non-state actors were included. When we are talking about finance, well, they already mentioned a little bit starting from the Kyoto Protocol. But finance becoming more important substance as a part of the commitment in COP25. Everyone recognized the importance of finance. How we be able to move from fossil fuel to non-fossil fuel. Our infrastructure is already very much on the fossil fuel infrastructure. If you move to non-fossil fuel, then you have to build related infrastructure, and then and then and then you need finance for this. So finance becoming very important after COP 19 or COP 25. Sorry, COP 25. So we started seriously talking about finance since 2019. Everyone talk about blended finance. Everyone talk about climate finance. Everyone talk about sustainable finance, which very much in line. You know, the objective is basically how we be able to finance project or initiative that's very much more environmentally friendly, something like that. So this is some important COPs that I just only mentioned. As I mentioned earlier, we have every year we have COPs. That's why then I just mentioned about some, I should say, some critical COPs. Let's start with COP, very popular COP just very recently. Why this is very popular? Because this is COP during the pandemic period. So everyone, every leaders in the world put very much interest for the last 3 COPs, Glasgow, Egypt, and next month in Dubai, because this is kind of post-COVID COPs. What really means and what the difference between COPs before the pandemic and things like that. Whether the commitment, fulfilled by developed countries, whether any obstacles or problems faced in the implementation or the adaptation of the initiatives. I think we can see the issues, what they discussed in 2021 when they call it COP26 in Glasgow. Indonesia came to this event with a very complete team headed by our president, Mr. Jokowi, and then committed with very ambitious and very progressive. I should say very progressive, because ambitious associated with something negative, It's very progressive because not many countries committed to do something seriously as far as the emission reduction. And Indonesia come up with among countries that very much committed to reduce emission with very significant numbers. What the result of the COP26 in Glasgow? There are several here. The first one is, they call it Glasgow Climate Pact, which consists of the item related to the acceleration action to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, enhance adaptation, commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emission, supporting developing nation, and protecting the restoring ecosystem. I think there are similar statement and narrative here still, but the difference is very much here. Supporting developing nation. This is very important statement. Because, well, we know developing nation, they have limited resources. When they experience something catastrophic, and then there are not enough resources to cover the impact of the catastrophe. Even it is big flood, earthquake, or, well, not not earthquake perhaps, uh, flood, and then catastrophic in very hot weather. So the harvest uh, not really successful, and creating some problem for the developing nation. And then what they can do, while at the global agreement, they ask also to have, they call it the national determined contribution. So in one side, they have to commit also to a target, but on the other side, they have very limited resources. So that's happening with the developing nation. That's why then this is very important part on the Glasgow, put more attention to the role of the developing nation in contributing to the reduction of emission. And then increase climate finance. This is very important. I should say finance becoming very important issues, because otherwise it is very difficult to achieve our objective without enough finance. So developed countries pledge to mobilize 100 billion US dollar per year by 2023 and beyond. Well, we noted very eagerly, that developed countries will contribute 100 billion every year. Well, we can see whether it's true or not. It's different story, but we can see this is climate, what they call it, climate finance. What include in climate finance, I will touch a little bit what type of climate finance available later on. And then the third one is phasing out coal. This is very important, particularly for Indonesia, because more than 95% of our electricity coming from coal. So Indonesia is very much in the center of the issues. Phasing out. The topic is about phasing out. Let's say from fossil, because coal is fossil, whether from fossil to non-fossil. So how we be able to phasing out in a good is in a good order, is really very important. That's why this is very much the issue for Indonesia. And the fourth one is about loss and damage. It is also very important. Uh, let's say what's happening in Pakistan. Is there coming from Pakistan here? Pakistan? Okay. I think it's still very fondly in my mind when huge flood just very recently happening in Pakistan. I think we all agree it is very much related to the global warming, and everyone in the world agree because of the global warming. But who can help Pakistan or other countries, perhaps in Africa or in other part of the globe, because of something happening because of someone else doing over there? So then in Glasgow, we agreed to discuss about loss and damage. Who can pay, who can provide contribution to help is really very important. And who can eligible is also very important. What size of catastrophic should be eligible? It is also very important discussion. So it is important to recognize it is not easy to discuss about this, but at least we are very happy, to see that loss and damage because of something associated with the climate change is part of or was part of the discussion. And last one on the Glasgow, it's about adaptation and resilience, the need to enhance adaptation effort and to prioritize the protection and restoration of the system, very much well noted. Adaptation is very important. Adaptation to our agreement is also very important. This is Glasgow. And this is Egypt. In 2022, when people still discussing the post-COVID recovery, what was discussed in Egypt agreed here. Loss and damage which should be operationalized in Dubai in COP 28. Let's see whether next month event will discuss about this loss and damage. This is very important for developing nation. And then adaptation is very much commitment to adapt any initiatives related to the sustainability. Climate finance reform gain traction. It is very important. In Egypt, it is very important. The effort on the finance side even further boosted by the agreement in the forum that the climate finance is very important and should be reformed in a way that's not difficult for particularly for developing nations. So we call it climate finance reform again traction, but new climate finance pledges were more limited than what was hoped. That's the problem. This is post-COVID, when people or when countries or when the leader put their own domestic issues on top rather than contributing for someone else. So nationalism, economic nationalism, even political nationalism rising, and then what happened is we are lacking commitment because pledge by the government before the COVID is really different compared with the implementation after the COVID, taking into consideration everyone becoming more nationalistic, something like that. So limited than what was hoped. So again, finance is becoming very important topic still. Emission cut did not add up. Ini juga, this is also very important topics because adaptation is very low. So much little bit here because Indonesia is one of the pioneer country in the world who already established carbon exchange. Not even advanced countries has, but Indonesia just opened officially by president a couple of weeks ago that Indonesia now has carbon exchange. Or in our bahasa, it's called it bursa carbon or carbon exchange, who facilitate the trading. They call it carbon market trading, things like that. That's why we are very progressive. We're very committed in our NDC. Even we are one of the pioneer of the carbon market. Dubai next month, COP28. Loss and damage, we hope, will be discussed. Not only who will be paying, this is very important, who will be paying, but also who will be eligible. It's not easy. I mean, a lot of technical discussion among the scientists, among the experts, how, in particular, who are going to be eligible, what size of catastrophic or what type of catastrophic, and so on and so forth. I mean, this is very much about the loss and damage. Climate finance, we expect that the discussion on finance will be accelerated because we criticize for the failure to meet their annual goal. So the target that I mentioned earlier, 100 billion every year, is not fulfilled. That's why then next month COP meeting in Dubai will discuss this topic in a great detail. Why you guys from developed countries not fulfilled your commitment? It is very important questions. Yeah. And then in Dubai, we will discuss about Just Energy Transition Partnership. This is initiative proposed by US actually. In G20 meeting in Bali a couple months ago, Indonesia is one of very selected countries who gain traction because under the G20 umbrella, the leaders agreed to provide a very significant number of support from the G20 members to Indonesia to establish, they call it transition, to help transition finance, from fossil to non-fossil, how to phasing out from coal to other resources, how to finance the energy transition and things like that. 3 countries, very lucky. Not only Indonesia. Indonesia got 20 billion US dollars. Africa, 8.5 billion US dollars. And Vietnam, 15.5 billion US dollars. Why Indonesia is bigger? Well, of course, we have huge biodiversity. We have managed our rainforest and things like that. And our commitment is highlighted, is very progressive commitment. That's why then we got bigger numbers rather than compare with other 2 countries here. So we will have 20 billion as part of the financing for energy transition. Well, I don't know whether the money is already in or not. Yeah. But it is still a commitment from last year G20 meeting in Denpasar in Bali. Let's see what's happening because it will be discussed again in Dubai next month. Early warning, it is very important. They are all agreed that we will have early warning system so we can more well prepared if catastrophic will be happening. So preparation is getting better. So damage can be limited, something like that. So early warning effort, they spend more than 3 billion for conducting or for studying how we be able to formulate or to construct what they call it early warning process or early warning models. So we can predict the catastrophic before or in advance. So much better preparation. Global adaptation will continue. Well, of course, this is very important. When we have target, we have to gradually adapt it into new target. And then in Dubai, we will start discussing about food. In my view, it's supposed to be not only food, should be energy as well. Food and energy. But let's say food becoming very important topic because of the climate change or global warming. As we see, no water, no food, something like that. Because global warming very much associated with water availability, but no water, no food. So the food system, how to conduct the early warning and how to provide enough water for our agriculture is very much issue on the Dubai. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the global effort that we've seen for the last 2 decades from let's say, from the first meeting in Berlin in 1995. For how long, we still discussing about this until we very much secure about our effort in dealing with this global warming increase. So it's very much questions. That's why then we are very much what you call it, excited to follow up the discussion, and then after that, what the finance can do in more specific topic. Every COPs goes every year. We have COPs, and the problem is classic actually. Why we sometimes very difficult to have a conclusion or agreement, the solid agreement in every COPs because of this. There is always ambition gap. We call it ambition gap. What we mean by ambition gap? The gap between goals set in Paris Agreement, which is 2 degrees, and the actual emission reduction made by countries. So actual reduction is not really committed. The adaptation is sometimes very low. So is always ambition gap. Well, again, I am not accusing COVID as one of the problem, because it is real that after COVID, the situation is getting difficult. That's why then there is some ambition gap. And then what else? Negotiation on key issues is not easy. The first one is about climate finance, adaptation, and loss and damage. It still will continue to be discussed, including this on Dubai next month meeting. I mean, the topic is still, discussing who will be eligible, who will pay this, because this is global. Ladies and gentlemen, perhaps you may aware that there are global warming, but they are also global polluters. They should be pay more. But then when we discuss, we negotiate, and we never come up with a conclusion. So that's why this is ambition gap, and negotiation will continue. And always disagreement on coal phase out. This is a problem for countries that very much rely on coal as source of energy. Well, energy transition is not killing someone. Energy transition is managing something, strike the balance between the economic growth, maintaining well-being of the people, but then committing to the reduction of the emission is rather difficult balance, because one of our minister very spokenly, very loudly mentioned, we don't want to comply with the target by sacrificing our growth of economy. It is not easy, how to strike the balance, because we will comply for whom benefit, and then at the same time we sacrifice this because our economic growth will implicate it because of the shifting and things like that. And then diverse interests. This is also very important. Wide range of stakeholders, including government, civil societies, businesses, and indigenous group. Why every COP becoming more dynamics every single year? Because of very different interests come together, to discuss something not easy, something difficult. That's why then businesses with indigenous group, it's not easy. Businesses is how to make money, and then government how to protect the people, and then but they should come to an agreement, about this uh, climate change or global warming impact. Well, as our rector mentioned, we are not supposed to be negative. We have to be optimistic because the effort and commitment continue to some extent, perhaps gradually, but I'm I'm belong to the optimistic one. I mean, at least in Indonesia, we are very much committed to continue to fulfill our commitment. Let's see what's happening. 70% of the world economy is committed to reach net zero, which is a good sign. More than 1,500 businesses, investors, cities have joined Race to Resilience, is a good sign. Every banks, every financial firms, every insurers, every investor change their paradigm and transition to their businesses. So this is also very important. It's global awareness. How we bring this value to change for the businessmen, for the investors, for the bankers is really very important. Bringing sustainability consideration, part of education. That's why it's I'm very appreciate and support, when this university launching degree program on this topic, because education seems to me is very important, not only for student scientists, but also for businesses, yeah, for government official to understand about this. More than 78 billion was mobilized for climate finance, less than 100 billion target, but still they have 78 billion. It's not small. Yeah. More than 70 trillion of asset committed to net zero by 2050. Again, it is not small, 70 trillion US dollar of asset under, they call it ESG asset management. I will touch a little bit on ESG later on. And 17 central banks as part of the 20 big banks and big countries, G20 have committed to stress testing their financial system against climate risk. So climate risk is going to be part of the consideration. Central bank doing some kind of stress testing on the climate risk. So this seems to me is very important. This is Indonesia NDC on 21 and 22. In 21, Indonesian NDC said that unconditional reduction 29% in 2030 if business as usual. What does it mean? Meaning that without any assistance from other part of the globe, with their own effort, Indonesia will be able to reduce emission 29% by 2030. Not 100%, of course, 29%. Otherwise, we cannot grow. We still use coal, for example. That's why then 29%. If business as usual. But if someone else assists us for international support, the emission, we can reduce not only 29%, but more than that, 41% of reduction. if someone else helped Indonesia. Now, in my view, it's also relevant for other countries. If we do other countries support, and other countries also will conduct more aggressive target, like Indonesia did here, from 29% to 41%. Even in 2022 NDC, even more progressive, from 29 to 31 in 2030. Business as usual. So very progressive one. And with international reduction, increase from 41% to 43%. This number just reflecting our government or our commitment toward the adaptation of the global warming target that we discussed in the COP since 1995. This is Indonesia. You have to check your country, how, because every country, they have their own NDC. And then perhaps later you can compare between country to country about the NDC. What the important support that needed by developing countries like Indonesia or other your countries as well, perhaps, I don't know. Finance is the first one. Yeah, because impossible without finance. Indonesia got 20 billion, as I said earlier, from the G20 meeting. I think it's not enough. We have to mobilize more than 20 billion to gradually transition from fossil to non-fossil. And then we have to mobilize finance from green financing. Green financing in terms of the Sukuk green bond, public-private partnership, because significant potential is there already, and Indonesia is already started to mobilize this. Indonesia is also utilized the carbon market and carbon tax. As I mentioned earlier, we already officially opened our carbon exchange in Jakarta Carbon Exchange. I think we already started. I think it is the first mover. I should say Indonesia as one of the first mover in carbon exchange. International cooperation is needed. Indonesia with Norway or Indonesia with other countries on promoting deforestation or reforestation in our rainforest in Kalimantan and other part of the globe. And optimizing capacity of our existing financial market, we discussed about sustainable finance here because banks should provide finance that in line with the sustainability consideration. We call it sustainable finance. This is finance. But finance is not enough. We have other support. Technology development support. The role of science and innovation is important. And the last one is capacity building. Capacity building, regulatory reform, integrate climate change into national system on education. This is very relevant. Increase readiness level of financial institution, increase public awareness, information accessible for public, and enhance collaboration. And perhaps you can adding up, the capacity building. Basically, I like to say this: integrated climate change into the national system on education. You already started here. You open officially a program, degree program on this. It is part of the adaptation and our commitment to reduce, or at least to understand what has been going. What we have been done, I have Indonesia, the data of Indonesia. I don't know the data from your country, you can compare, but we did in Indonesia, we reduce emission of which 97.2 come from forest and land and energy sectors. Forestry sector restoration of 2 million hectare of peatland, 20 million hectare of degraded land. In energy sector by 2050, this is our commitment, by 2050, renewable energy at least 31%. Yeah. So not 100% yet, because it's not easy. Oil should be less than 20%. I mean, the fossil should be less than 20%. Coal should be minimum 25%. Gas should be minimum 24%. And our vision, Indonesian vision by 2045, we will have green refineries in terms of producing biofuels. That's the country commitment. Again, we are among the first mover, which very progressive in stating the target. You can check on the website of the COP how other countries reflect or respond about the target and so on, about all the initiatives. At least we prepare already, including the roadmap on sustainable financing and initiatives. Let's talk about climate finance. This is perhaps the topic that very much related to our topic today. Climate finance refers to the funding and investing or investment required to support climate mitigation and adaptation activities. I think it's very general, it's easy to understand. So things about finance which very much in line with mitigation, climate mitigation and adaptation. So anything related to this and you provide finance from government or from non-government, you can call as climate finance, okay? Climate finance involve financing projects, programs, and initiatives that aim to reduce greenhouse gas emission, promote renewable energy, enhance energy efficiency, and build resilience to the impact of climate change. I think it's very straightforward. That's climate finance. When you have to finance the project that promote energy efficiency, that's climate finance. Okay? Climate finance comes from a variety of sources. Could be coming from governments, could be coming from the international organizations like World Bank or IMF or whatever, Regional African Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank, or whatever. Could be coming from local banks, will be coming from capital market, business, and multilateral development bank. So climate finance can be coming from everywhere, as far as the objective or the aims is in line with the sustainability consideration. Okay? I think from these 3 points, we clear what we mean in general about the climate finance. So what then the difference between climate finance and sustainable finance? I think is in Indonesian word 11-12. Yeah. Apa itu bahasa Inggris? This is a picture that's mentioned the gap, climate finance falling short of 100 billion target. Developed countries not fulfill their commitment, target 100 billion, but they just fulfilled 78 billion in 2018. And still, this is a lot of question for the next COP meeting in Dubai. Again, about climate finance, this is types of climate finance. Public climate finance coming from government budget, grant, concession loan, equity investment, multilateral development banks, finance from ADB, World Bank, African Development Bank, or Islamic Development Bank, private climate finance coming from bank, investor, private equity, climate focused investment fund, could be renewable energy, sustainable agriculture coming from the source, the fund that created by could be private equities, climate insurance and risk management, carbon market and climate offset that we already established this. We can create this, we can support this climate finance through carbon market by the establishment of carbon exchange. This is type of the climate finance. Climate finance by bank, I touched briefly here just to give you some perspective. Climate finance by bank could be financing renewable project, solar, winds, hydro, and others, promoting energy efficiency, smart building, efficient appliances, and industrial process, green bonds and sustainable finance, including green loans or sustainability linked loans, carbon market service related to the carbon market. Bank can help client in navigating the complexities of carbon market. Bank also can help risk management and insurance. Bank can provide ESG integration and sustainability reporting, and also partnership and collaboration. So basically, if we rely very much on our local banks or existing banks in Indonesia, it could be conventional bank, including the Islamic bank, they can produce that kind of tools to finance all the climate finance needed for, let's say, to reduce emission or to transition from fossil to non-fossil. I would like to hear what's happening in your country, in particular. And what's the difference between the climate finance and sustainable finance? Well, actually, it is very important. I don't have any clear definition, but try to find out how to describe the difference. Sustainable finance is a subset. Sustainable finance is a subset of climate finance that specially focus on investment and funding that contribute to sustainable development and environmental protection. Well, it's almost similar actually, but very much more more detailed and more project based. That's the sustainable finance. Sustainable finance goes beyond mitigating climate change and include broader ESG, environmental, social, and governance consideration. Sustainable finance aim to align financial flows and investment with sustainable development goals. When we are talking about sustainable development goals issued by the UN, we are talking about the reduce poverty, promoting social equity, protecting ecosystem, and enhancing overall well-being. Perhaps if I can say, what's then the difference between the climate finance and sustainable finance? In my view, climate finance is more generic. The way we describe is very much related to the climate, but then sustainable finance is more applicable because is will be conducted by banks, by capital market, and by whoever that provide finance, including by the government. And sustainable finance involve integrating ESG into investment and decision-making process, incorporating sustainability criteria, and encouraging transparency and accountability. Well, it's very straightforward. So if bank can create this and produce something for financing this project, I think we already committed to our sustainable finance. Well, for those of you that working on the industrial or in the financial industry, I mean, sorry. I think this is very important piece of information, These challenges that at the moment in dealing with this sustainable finance. Understanding on the strategic implication of climate change of financial institution and market is really needed. So the first one is understanding about this topic or bank or bankers. It's very important. That's why perhaps it's good in this university invite someone who expert on this and invite bankers to listen in this forum. Seems to me it's very important. So if you have a good network globally and then you have known someone who really is very, very, very expert on this topic, come to Indonesia and then we invite bankers or local financial market activists or participants to listen. This is also one of the very important initiatives. Because knowing is very important. In Indonesian word, tak kenal maka tak sayang. So you have to introduce first and then we will love them later. And then how the current financial system can be aligned to positively impact society or customer and enhance long-term financial value of the firm. Strategy and framework for responding financial risk is also very important because sustainable finance, you have to understand what risk involved in this finance. So it is also very important for bankers to understand what the kind of risk that involved in this finance. Because risk management is a very important part of banks. And enhance core competencies. This is very important. I do agree. We need reskilling and new capabilities. Leverage digital technology. I mean, to dealing with this complexity and you guys your hands. Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you very much for this. But I hope you still follow. Okay. Thank you. There should be holistic effort. We can, because if just only one side dealing with this seriously, but the other one is not really quite serious, it's not the way we, try to make an effort. It should be something like this. Central bank do something as well. Sovereign fund do something as well. Pension fund, insurance as well. Asset managers, banks, capital market. Everyone should dealing with this similar topic. So everyone then understand what's really going on and everyone can respond effectively how to dealing with these challenges. So the central bank should integrate between their macro into ESG or into climate change issues. And then sovereign wealth fund, ESG should be included. Pension fund is similar. Insurance as well. Asset managers, banks should have ESG policies, measures and disclose loan and investment linked to fossil and so on. We are very lucky because we have already what we call it taxonomy. So in our industry at the moment, banks have a guideline which sector or which company can be provided by loan by using what we call it the taxonomy. So for the red, they are different color: red, yellow, and green. Coal is red because we are in the process of phasing out. So if bank provide loan for financing coal project, I think banks providing red project. I mean, that's the kind of taxonomy type. So taxonomy provided which one is red, which one is yellow, and which one is green. So it's kind of guideline for banks, which area or which sector is green that bank can provide loan. Well, this is ah, perhaps this is one of my uh, final presentation. So this is key for a successful COP. We all recognize it's not easy to help COP because of different interests, different ambition, as I mentioned earlier. But to have a good one or effective one, I think we are together to have what we call it, need to set and update ambitious target together and committed, enhance climate finance, again about climate finance, strengthen the adaptation, address the social and economic impact of dimension of the climate change, technological transfer and capacity building, collaborative partnership, and engage more non-state actors. Yeah. Non-state actors, including researchers, scientists, professors, academicians, and it's part of the non-state actors in discussing the global impact of the global warming. Again, global warming belongs to all of us. Global warming is not only US or China. It is us. It is about us. It is about our future. Please recognize this and please understand this and please study this for your own concern. I think wherever we are in Indonesia and other part of the globe, I think this topic is becoming very important topic to know and to be discussed. With that, I will end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your amazing presentation. And now we are going to open the question and answer session. Any question from the audience? Okay. Please introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Jajang. I am from Faculty of Economics and Business, MA in Economics. Thank you so much, sir, for explaining us about regarding the topic, and you have told us a lot regarding the COP. But still, I want to ask you about uh, what is actually COP and what is actually COP responsible for. I thought if we talk regarding the sustainability, we will heard a lot UNDP or maybe JRI and etc. The second questions, nowadays financial institutions in Indonesia or maybe banks has already practicing the sustainable performance, but how can we introduce this concept, sustainable concepts, to the investors, to the businessmen, or to the other stakeholders related to this concept? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Want to answer directly?
I think I will answer one by one. Regarding what bank can do and what bank can leverage from bank's initiative in dealing with this climate finance or climate change, things like that. Because now I think it's very timely and very important time for banks or financial institution in Indonesia to sell this idea to the investors. So your compliance to the sustainability concern is an investment. is a selling point for you, for banks, because investors, well, I just back from Europe. Every investor from Europe always asks, what investment can we do in Indonesia when sustainability consideration is the priority or the first objective of the project? Then they are looking for this kind of activity. I think with this in mind, it is very important for bank to recognize the importance of this sustainability consideration in any business that banks can do. I think that's perhaps my response for the questions.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Any questions? Good. Okay, Miss, over there.
Um, Thank you, Professor, for your presentation. And actually, I have great interest in the topic of carbon exchange, and I already start my first paper regarding this. And I see that in carbon exchange in Europe, they have FERA and gold standard for their standard before issuing the carbon credit to the carbon exchange market. So in Indonesia, does we already have this kind of standards to optimize the carbon exchange impact on the emission reduction? That's my first question. And the second one is, we know that Indonesia is the widest forest in the top 10 in the world. And I guess we are going to have an issue regarding the capital city movement from Jakarta to Kalimantan, which is actually in East Kalimantan is the third province with the largest forest in Indonesia. And as we know that when we move the capital city to there, I think we're going to have so many development, so many buildings there, and maybe it's going to the deforestation risk. So what's your opinion about that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ziza, for your questions.
Well, actually, very difficult questions.
I'm sorry.
Well, about carbon market, seems to me is very important. We are in the very early stage of development of carbon market or carbon trading. In my view, we still lacking in a great detail. How to establish, I should say, the ecosystem of the market, because we have to have an ecosystem starting from the verification whether it is fulfill part of the set of market. I mean, verification for establishing demand and supply is also very important. And of course, other incentive they can further government can provide it is seems to me is also very important. So it's good to see this or to watch this very closely. Uh, what's been happening in our exchange, carbon exchange. We are working together actually with other relevant parties here in Indonesia, including the Minister of Finance, how to provide some kind of incentive, and then also uh, supervisory authority who responsible for providing rules and regulation, in particular in promoting supply and demand of the carbon market here. So that's why, again, still in developing. I would like to say is in the perfect already now. The player is still also limited. The number of the player is still limited. So the market mover is still needed, in particular for the newcomers in the market. So that's perhaps in very general way I respond the first question. The second question on the new capital city in Kalimantan. Well, uh, in my view, there will be some implication. But then how to mitigate is really very important, because what government developed in Kalimantan including the effort that integrate to the protection of the environment. Even government announced this initiative, I mean, the new capital as part of the Green City, the initiative that's very much in line with the managing global warming and climate change issues. I was together with the Minister of Transportation when looking for mode of transportation for our new capital. So the future transportation in our new capital is very much environmentally friendly. There will be no fossil fuel driven transportation mode. There should be more sustainable transportation mode in Jakarta, or not in Jakarta, in our new capital. So from the very beginning, it is started from the government that this city is different because we develop our future city, which is in line with the environment friendly initiatives. So let's start with positive thinking that it is okay with that. And then the important things is basically how we implement this, because it is important to watch very closely the implementation of the vision to build more sustainable capital city in Kalimantan. With this vision, I think, well, of course, the effort to mitigate the implication of carbon creating because of the development everywhere in the new city will be mitigated, including the effort to use the electricity, transportation, and things like that. That's my response on the second question.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir, for your answer. Is there any question from the audience? Okay. Boy over there.
Hello.
Okay.
Thank you so much. My name is Tafail Hussain and I'm from Pakistan. I'm a PhD student in Economics and Finance.
Where were you?
Slowly, talking slowly.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Okay.
Can you stand up?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
My name is Tafail Hussain and I'm a PhD student, Economics and Business. I read a story a few days ago. It was in Reuters about Indonesian president. They said Indonesian president they launches carbon emission credit trading with the aim of creating market to cut the greenhouse gas emission and become a major participant in the global carbon trade. So about this story, I have a few questions to ask. How will the carbon market to be designed to ensure that it's effective to reduce greenhouse gas? And what measure will be taken to prevent fraud and ensure the integrity of the market?
Can you repeat the last one?
What measure will be taken to prevent fraud and ensure the integrity of the market?
Okay. Well, there will be a collective effort to build an ecosystem because we need good ecosystems to support, government should contribute, the business players should contribute, the platform that we provided is also very important because without platform, I think we can almost impossible to have some kind of credibility in the market, So government policies is very important. We very lucky because a lot of proactive initiatives coming from the government in approaching this issue to make market more credible. So if I don't mistake take your question, I think it is very important to have incentive, support of regulation, understanding of the business people to create a platform and also create a very effective ecosystem for establishing a more credible market. That's my question, perhaps. I'm sorry if I don't miss your point.
It's okay, but I have another question regarding this. Like if we see mostly the developed countries, they are focusing on the carbon emission. They said like, but they don't do anything practically. If we can say, if I take example of Pakistan, so Pakistan is number 4th, if I'm not wrong, is a affected country of the global warming. But we are not releasing that kind of carbon emission. I think we are contributing 0.02% or 4%.
Yeah.
But if we see China and India, so we are in the middle of
Yeah,
that, and they're releasing a huge carbon emission. So
Yeah.
I think this is the country responsibility who releasing the carbon emission. So they have to pay taxes to the countries near to the neighbors. So the neighbors and the underdeveloped countries, they have to fight with the carbon emission.
Yeah, I do agree. I do agree. It is part of the complexities that we discuss in the COP meeting. Who pays and who eligible? Between who doing the polluting and who don't
Yeah.
pollute, It is still part of the discussion. I think that's what we expect from Dubai meeting, basically to clarify your concern. So country like Indonesia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, which is very vulnerable because of the climate change, is really put an effort to push some developed countries to do things that should be part of their responsibility. Okay?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so government policy is very important to make market incredibility. Okay, I think we have one more question from our participant in online, from Hafizullah Oria, Magister Finance and Sustainable Finance student. He asked how to bring sustainable finance in a diverse culture. One has different needs, and also in a country which has a lot of political disturbance.
Which one? The question is how to bring sustainable finance in diverse culture, where one has different needs, and also in a country which has a lot of political disturbances. Yeah, that's the issues that always rise from every single COPs in every year. As I mentioned earlier, we have a gap, we have very diverse concern and interest, we have very different participant as well. So it's not easy. So in Dubai, I mean, starting from Glasgow, Egypt, Dubai, perhaps later next year, we will still discuss the same thing. Try to clarify and try to develop a formula that's really balanced between the interests of developed countries or interests of developing countries, interests of any different actors, and interest of, let's say, whoever the participant of the COP. It is very important to recognize that every single country perhaps they have their own unique situation. Again, it is not easy. The discussion domestically within a single country is really very important to recognize the importance. But the bottom line key seems to me is very important. How bring all the sustainability consideration to the core of the every single discussion. It is very important. Otherwise, if we lose that, I think we can lose our capacity to achieve the objective, achieving and reduction of the emission, in line with our effort to dealing with the global warming. That's my perhaps brief response.
Thank you so much for the answer. One last question. Is there? Okay.
I think I need to stand because you are not going to give me the chance.
Okay.
Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Sadia. I'm from Afghanistan and I'm a MA student in economics. I saw the slides at the first. It's really surprising for me personally that since 1992 the COP has been started and the discussion for the especially carbon emission has been started, but gradually over the past 2 decades, instead of decreasing, it has reached to its hottest level since last this year July was counted as the hottest month over all the world, which Indonesia was also part of that, but the biggest contribution was from China, which was above than 50%. So in I just want to know your perspective, your analysis on this, that if all the world has been working on this since last 2 decades, still they couldn't reach to 1% decrement on the zero net emission. So why it has started to increase instead of decreasing, although more than 100 billion funds are going to be assigned for this gradually by the passage of years. This is one question. Second question is, how about the poor countries? So basically, as much as the carbon emissions project might be more critical in the developing countries, in the developed countries, how about the poor countries? They are gonna have a fight of poverty more compared than today if this project gonna be implemented, if or basically the fund that are going to be donated for them is not accurately or properly divided on that area. And the third question is, this climate change also has impact on the skills and also on the job and employment rate in the market. Currently, research shows that overall it will reduce the job opportunity in market like near to 1%. But basically, it also confirmed that over the years, it might increase 25% job opportunity in the market. It means we need upgrading of skills for this change in the market. So what is the strategies for this upgrading of skills? Is there any strategy or discussion on the COP about the upgrading of skills also? And what kind of impact especially this will have on the poor countries?
Thank you very much for the questions. I think it's very important questions. Why, after the 2 decades we discussed, we still, let's say, discuss almost similar topics, you know? It's a pity, actually. That's why then I said earlier, we recognize it is very difficult because of very diverse interests among developed and developing countries. And then we criticize the developed countries who contribute, who pollute actually more rather than developing countries, but not committed. I think for the last 2 COPs, we raised the issues of that. Well, they say very unfortunate we live in the pandemic era and still impact of the pandemic is still one of the consideration, they said. Well, everyone, I agree that it's not fair, you know. That's why then we expect what we discuss in Dubai next month really discuss about something very fundamental, you know, the commitment of the developed countries to contribute more and clear criteria and clear formula on who will pay and who will be eligible for any single event, in particular in developing countries. So this is very important. As you mentioned earlier, developing countries is not in good position. That's why then not only in developing countries actually, we have to develop what we call it understanding on the topics related to the loss and damage that I mentioned earlier, you know, because it is very important for developing countries if we have understanding on this and fundamentally have position scientifically, you know, why we have asking uh, concern about the who will be responsible for any single event of the catastrophe. It seems to me is very important. And the second one is about the skill or the job that you mentioned earlier. I have to check because in Glasgow, I mean 2 years ago, the discussion on reskilling and upskilling on this particular information or in knowledge on the sustainable finance is part of the discussion or part of the discussion how with this kind of area climate change global global warming what sort of a job will be profile will be available and things like that. It seems to me is already identified. So well, I hope the UN, I mean United Nations, will follow up as part of the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, providing guideline, particularly to do kind of reskilling or upskilling. Reskilling because of there is new required capability and capacity in this area is really very clear, and upskilling because perhaps we need some kind of additional education and information. So we do expect. I have to check what sort of initiative, or you can have yourself check in Google, for example, what initiative that World Bank in particular or UN in particular dealing with the reskilling and upskilling activities, and what can we participate. Yeah, it is very important, in particular those who are coming from the developing nation, like Indonesia or yourself from Afghanistan or other part of the globe, what we can expect and what we can contribute, in particular for developing the labor force that really compatible with the need of the future more sustainable environment, things like that. And then the last one is about, uh, I think that's the last one regarding the reskilling. Sorry, the food or the poor country. Yeah, yeah. The poor country, well, I always associated poor countries related to the developing nation. So if I said developing nation is meaning also included the poor country, okay? So it's almost similar initiatives. It should be it should be part of the solution, not part of the problem. If if initiative to reduce the negative impact of the global warming, I think the poor country or developing countries should part of the solution, bringing together and then providing some initiative related to the empowerment of the people in particular, and directly perhaps put additional assistance to increase the skills for the people. So dealing with this current situation, I think that's perhaps my point.
Okay, thank you for your answer, Professor. Okay, now let's proceed to the next agenda. Token of appreciation handover by our Dean of the Faculty of Economic and Business to the other speaker, Professor Mulia Mandarma Shahadat. Professors, please join us to the stage. Okay. Now it's time to take a picture with the audience. Please. Ladies and gentlemen, please all rise. All smile. Triple IU style. Okay. Okay. Please be seated. Nanti ada pertanyaan dari media pusat sekitar 2 pertanyaan. Di luar. Oh. Di luar aja. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, we have now reached the end of our agenda. We hope that this event gives you valuable insight and will broaden your knowledge. Once again, thank you very much for your participation in this event. We look forward to having you again on another occasion. Let's complete this public lecture with Hamdalah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.